Oko, how you make me feel like I'm going loco. The most annoying, frustrating, yet somehow also amusing planeswalker of the entire modern era. He's not your regular planeswalker because this Fae boy is the sexiest and most tedious dude to ever play Magic the Gathering. And surprisingly, not too much was really known about him until now. That's right, my man, we finally have some real lore to dig into with him, and I've had a real blast, let me tell you, digging through his story because Lorwyn-Eclipsed fleshed him out and like smoothed out his sharp-witted corners, and now, I actually kinda surprisingly love this guy, which, if you've ever played against Oko, really says something. Well, except when Connor's playing him, I still hate that, always turning him into a stupid elk. So annoying. Now, I'm not alone when I say I'm not too big of a fan of how Oko plays in the game. He takes the term control to a very dumb level. Honestly, his playstyle is the most selfish thing I've ever seen in a planeswalker, and it's very fixated on making sure all your friends are having the worst time possible. But now seeing his actual origins, it's kind of clear why this cowboy, ringleader, trickster, thief, or whatever he decides to wear Fae is the way that he actually is. Lorwyn's Liege and Shadowmoor's Scion. Turns out that the vine-whipping trickster got his start in the plane of Nightmare Fairy Tales, Lorwyn-Shadowmoor, that just released a new set. Oko wasn't born so much as he was authored, not in the J.R.R. Tolkien style of author. He's not a book character or something in the lore. He was actually created on Lorwyn-Shadowmoor by the fairy mommy, the fairy queen, Yuna. So learning that, I actually wasn't too shocked to see where Oko's story then later ended up, because Fae Queens are all sorts of bad news when it comes to fantasy lore. Cause whenever a Fae Queen creates you, what she really means is, you're my little plaything, bark for me. At least that's what all the ones that I've met have said. Woof woof. As for poor Oko here, he was literally created as a piece of Yuna, essentially a living backup file. Her plan was for him to rule as Shadowmoor's prince, that way preserving her own essence and memory through the cyclical reset of reality on the plane known as the Great Aurora. Essentially, he was a cosmic USB drive with the powers of a goddess flowing through him, if that's an apt comparison. To be fair though, this was Yuna's entire shtick pretty much. She did the exact same thing with Marilyn for Lorwyn. They were just basically contingency plans. And so it's no surprise probably that the big dog here didn't listen, and instead, he chose violence. Much like me in my own youth, Oko was rebellious, fiercely independent, and absolutely not interested in what his spooky fairy mama actually wanted. I can't really blame him, I think. The dude just kinda wanted to be himself. As someone who really loves One Piece, it's kind of giving very Monkey D. Luffy vibes to me, and I do think once I realized that was what Oko's true story actually was, I fell way deeper in love with him as a character. In a nutshell, Oko is anti-authority, anti-establishment, and also anti-capitalist. He's the Brennan Lee Mulligan of Magic the Gathering cards.
Laws are threats made by the dominant socioeconomic ethnic group in a given nation. It's just a promise of violence that's enacted, and police are basically an occupying army. You know what I mean? You guys want to make some bacon?
Surprised there is no Brennan Lee Mulligan card yet. At some point, Oko formed a very deep bond with a storytelling giant, which is also a regular formative experience in my home country as well. He was an ancient being who didn't treat him like a function, a junction, a fragment, or a piece of a pie. Instead, he treated him like a whole pie, like, well, Oko. This giant told Oko stories about Erdu and Isilu, the long-gone elementals of day and night of Lorwyn-Shadowmoor, and in doing so, of course, revealed a truth that shattered the neat little narrative that Yuna had built up around the entire plane. Turns out there had actually been something else before, a world that was lost to Yuna's need for absolute control. Now you can probably expect what happened next. Oko latched onto that information immediately. He called the giant father, and promised that he'd be a good son, which in normal circumstances would be very touching. Unfortunately for him though, Yuna is not normal circumstances. She of course had the giant killed right in front of Oko. No subtlety, no metaphor, just a very clear, very deliberate message. You belong to me, and I will give you some serious trauma if you think you can rebel or do anything otherwise. Instead, of course, though, it just snapped whatever threat still tied Oko to her and the Fey Court. He didn't scream, he didn't beg, he just turned his back on Yuna, on Shadowmoor, on the entire Fey system, and poof, vanished. Well, and while it's not absolutely confirmed, based on the timeline, this would be right around when Oko also got his Planeswalker spark, which is actually pretty sick. I mean, it's anime as hell, to be real with you, and it's truly the most Oko thing possible. He would not be controlled and would never allow people like Yuna to prosper across the multiverse. And so he magically awakened the exact power that would give him the ultimate freedom so that he could go on to become what is essentially, yes, a goofy warrior of liberation. I get it, it's not my One Piece channel, but seriously, the parallels are there, brother. Oko, the Pipe Giver. When Oko eventually showed up on the plane of Eldraine around the year 4545 AR, for anyone out there who really loves date and time, he didn't arrive as a conqueror or a hero. He arrived as a charming disaster, sort of like me when I moved to Japan originally. What can I say? I'm kinda smooth with it. One might even say a smooth operator. Oko then met a human hedge witch named Elise, and then later they met again. And again, and again. And then they went and got it on, and Elise became pregnant with their son, the half-Fey Callan. Yes, Callan is related to Oko. It's Oko's son. And for a brief, dangerous moment, Oko almost looked like he might, settle down. But then he realized cigarettes and milk are pretty awesome, so he traveled instead across the multiverse to get some of those and then definitely come back ASAP. Nah, in reality, the villagers didn't trust Elise, and Oko went psycho-social on them with all of these multicolored horn whips that he has, probably turned at least some of them into elk, and then Elise left him. So he did what he does best. He went on to dismantle some order somewhere else because really that is what Oko knows how to do best. He doesn't overthrow kings and kingdoms because he hates order. He does it because he has seen what happens when someone decides what you're actually allowed to be. And honestly, from his perspective, it kinda makes a lot of sense. And it even works pretty well with his card design. He controls the battlefield by not letting the enemy players have any control. He lets them have a bunch of elk instead. Which I've been told actually is a bannable offense in certain corners of the multiverse. Thank goodness planeswalkers can't be your commander. Oko gives Garruk a bad trip. Next up in the wacky adventures of Oko is his time with Garruk Wildspeaker, and just looking at these two, you'd never bet that they would be best friends, I guess. But they did hit it off super well over some drinks, kissed a little, had a crazy wild night, and became best buddies for life in ways only they know. No, wait, what? No, this is not at all what happened. I kind of think that all this Oko stuff is kind of getting to me. I'm starting to be tainted by, the trickster antics. What actually happened was that Oko rolls back into Eldraine in the year 4560 AR, yes, important, and immediately learns that he's been hunted by Garruk Wildspeaker. He ends up trapping Garruk in those sparkly thorny vines, pokes around in his head, notices that Garruk has a Hedron in him that's suppressing some evil demon magic, and Oko instead decides to be just like his mama and all the other great fae of the world and turn Garruk into his dog. No, that is no joke. Oko said, "Oh, perfect, you're my dog now," and used his fate charms on Garruk, turning him into a mesmerized bodyguard, literally named Dog. And phenomenal execution, Oko. No notes, I guess. Well, with his new murder puppy secured, Oko now sets his sight on what he does best: destabilizing functional societies. The High King of Eldraine? Peace treaties, cooperation between elves and humans? Well, we all know that is unacceptable, right? Unacceptable! Unacceptable! Along the way, he also runs into Will Kenrith and Rowan Kenrith and has dogs save them from the Redcaps, which are just essentially evil gnomes. Oko then disguises himself as a knight named Kado and hits a wink so hard at them it deletes memories, and then goes on to kidnap the High King of Eldraine. casual. Fast forward a couple of months and everything's gone all sorts of messed up. The king has been turned into a stag, a classic Oko move dare I say, and planned a sick wild hunt that Garruk would lead to hunt him because apparently regicide is only satisfying if it's art. And then it gets all sort of messed up because Oko kills the king himself and then sort of just skedaddles. No crown, no king, just a dead stag and a completely dismantled monarchy. The Rumble at Thunder Junction. Which then leads me into arguably the best part of Oko's story, his adventures in Thunder Junction, the rockin' rodeo western plane that we had recently. Remember that? Surprisingly interesting plane, and it actually had some fun lore for Oko specifically. Here's the context. Oko has somehow made it through the desparkening, still holding on to his own Planeswalker spark because, of course he did, it's totally his vibe. And then, New Phyrexia, a bunch of evil biomechanical conquerors, invades the multiverse, reality breaks, sparks go out like cheap candles, and Oko just pretty much ignored all of that nonsense and went to steal some stuff instead because why should he care? He then gets a message from well, I guess I can't exactly say person, I guess a living nightmare that's kind of beautiful. It's Ashiok, who basically says, "Hey my sweet darling Oko, do you want to steal some stuff from cowboys?" And Oko, spiritually incapable of saying no to the funniest possible adventure that Magic has ever cooked up in their brains, signs on to rob Mak Taranao on Thunder Junction. But first, you know what's up, he's gonna need a team. Introducing the greatest heist squad since Ocean's 11, Rakdos, Giza and Geralf, Raska, Umezawa, and the linchpin, the goat, Tiny Boats. Now the plan itself is layered, stupidly clever, and morally, let's say, flexible. Oko also recruits Any Flash for some illusion breaking, and everything is going awesome because my man Tiny Bones is locked the hell in. But then the fruits of Oko's loins came to mess everything up. Remember how he's a papa? Well, that's about to be relevant here because his son, Kellen, appears during the heist to mess everything up. This is the one thing that Oko hadn't had planned for, and it kind of shows because he was a pretty non-committal father, let's say, and now he's got to deal with his own kid. So Oko drags Kellen along, not out of love, but just because he's useful. I think we can say that Oko is barely better than his own mom, Yuna, right? The heist, of course, from there on spirals, innocents are in danger, Kellen actually stays behind to save people while Oko just scoots boots and boogies on out of there. Later, Oko just lies or gaslights and says that he meant for Kellen to be the hero, which is either a galaxy brain manipulation move or industrial grade copium. Honestly, it's probably the second, but I still respect it. By the end of this entire affair, Oko betrays, is betrayed harder, loses the vault prize, almost gets turned to stone by Raska, and then just planeswalks away empty-handed. The crew disbands, the job's a complete failure, and Tiny Bones probably went on to be an alcoholic. I don't know, man. I do hope, though, that Tiny Bones is alright. I miss you, Tiny Bones. Oko Eclipsed. Which now brings us to the current modern era where Oko is once again back in his home, Lorwyn-Eclipsed, to cause some real trouble. Up to one target creature gains all creature types. Imagine all the strange brews you could cook up with Oko here and all these new changeling cards. Maybe it's time for me to finally build that Grolnok deck. Oko's back in his old stomping grounds and is ready to confront his sort of almost sister, Marilyn. He's bonded with the mighty embodiment of Shadowmoor, Isilu, and is pissed to see what his home has become and is even more angry to see Marilyn. Because she is kind of the spitting image of Yuna and Oko has no idea who she is. And his Shadowmoor half is just weaving chaos, causing problems for Marilyn, her party, and even the great and mighty Ajani Goldmane, who for some reason is also here. And if you want to understand a little bit more of what's going on with Lorwyn-Shadowmoor, you can check out this video where I break down its entire lore and history and what's actually going on with Lorwyn-Eclipsed and everything. And hey, maybe if this isn't the first video you've been watching on the channel, why not consider subscribing? It really means a lot if you're gonna tag along for the ride, and it kind of helps out a small channel like this. Or just leave a like, that's also much appreciated. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you hopefully in the next video.